The seed was smaller than a fingernail, brown, wrinkled, and utterly unremarkable. Ravi Okonkwo held it in his palm and saw a tree. Around him, 300 cadets from 47 different species stood in the great hall of Dreth Station. Each held a seed from their home world. Most looked bored. Some looked confused. A few were already putting their seeds in pockets, eager to move on with their day. Commandant Yara stood at the podium. She was Torelli, tall, four-armed, with a hard shell that clicked when she moved. Her voice carried across the hall without effort. The stewardship ceremony has been part of this academy for 400 years, she said. One seed, one cadet, 30 days. You will keep this seed alive. You will present it at graduation. This is not difficult. This is not meant to be difficult. It is meant to teach you patience. Ravi's roommate, a crystalline being named Solon, leaned toward him. The Mirati did not have faces exactly, but Ravi had learned to read the way light moved through their body. Right now, Solon was broadcasting confusion. I do not understand this ritual, Solon whispered. My people do not grow. We form. What am I supposed to do with organic matter? Keep it in water, Ravi whispered back. Change the water every few days. It will sprout, and then you have a small plant. What is the purpose of a small plant? Ravi smiled. Ask me again in 30 days. The ceremony ended. Cadets filed out, already forgetting about the seeds in their pockets. Ravi walked slowly, still looking at his acacia seed. In his mind, he was back home, standing in his grandmother's garden outside Lagos. She had planted trees her whole life. Most of them she would never see fully grown. When he asked her why she bothered, she had looked at him like he was missing something obvious. The trees are not for me, she had said. They are for the ones who come after. Ravi found a window and looked out at the stars. Dreth Station was massive, home to thousands of cadets and staff from across the galaxy. It had training halls and combat simulators and diplomatic suites. It had everything the Galactic Peacekeeping Corps needed to turn young beings into soldiers. What it did not have was a garden. Ravi had checked. In his first week at the academy, he had searched every section of the station database. There had been a hydroponics bay once, decades ago. Bay 7. It was shut down after budget cuts and never reopened. Now it sat empty, sealed, forgotten. One seed was not enough. Ravi knew this in his bones. On Earth, nothing grew alone. Plants needed other plants. They needed insects and bacteria and fungi. They needed water cycles and nutrient flows. They needed ecosystems. One seed in a cup of water would sprout. It would grow a few inches. It would die. Ravi wanted more. That night, he submitted a request to access Base 7. It was denied within an hour. He submitted it again. Denied. He submitted it a third time, with a detailed proposal attached. Denied without comment. Solon watched him from across their shared quarters. You are attempting something, the Mirati observed. Yes. The probability of success appears low. Yes. Why do you continue? Ravi looked at his seed, sitting in a small cup of water on his desk. The shell was already softening. In a few days, a tiny root would emerge. It would search for soil that was not there. Because someone has to, he said. On the 5th day, the summons came. Commandant Yara wanted to see him. Her office was sparse and clean. She sat behind a desk that looked too small for a large frame. Her forehands were folded, 2 pairs stacked on top of each other. Her compound eyes studied him without blinking. Cadet Okonkwo, she said, you have submitted 5 requests for access to a sealed section of this station. Explain. Ravi stood at attention. Base 7 was a hydroponics facility, Commandant. It has soil beds, irrigation infrastructure, and grow lights. It could be restored. For what purpose? To grow things, Commandant. Yara's antennae twitched. The stewardship ceremony requires you to maintain 1 seed, not restore an abandoned agricultural project. With respect, Commandant, 1 seed cannot survive alone. Plants need systems. They need companions. They need roots that connect to other roots. This is symbolic, Cadet. No one expects your seed to thrive. Ravi took a breath. Then why give us living seeds instead of plastic ones? The question hung in the air. Yara's compound eyes reflected the light in strange patterns. For a long moment, she said nothing. "You are either very foolish or very interesting," she finally said. "I have not decided which." "Neither have I, Commandant." Something that might have been amusement crossed her face. She tapped a command in her desk console. "Limited access," she said. "Base 7. Observation only. You will not remove equipment. You will not requisition resources. You will look, and then you will understand why your request was foolish." Ravi saluted. "Thank you, Commandant." "Do not thank me yet, Cadet. I'm giving you exactly enough rope to hang yourself." Ravi left her office with a new clearance code and a 30-day countdown running in his mind that IT was not enough time. It was not enough resources. It was not enough support, but it was a start. The door had not opened in 80 years. It groaned like something dying when Ravi forced it apart. Dust poured out in clouds, so thick he had to cover his face. He stepped inside and stopped breathing. Base 7 was enormous. The ceiling rose so high it disappeared into shadow. The floor stretched in every direction, broken by raised platforms that had once been soil beds. Pipes ran along the walls, hundreds of them, cracked and rusted, leading nowhere. Ancient grow lights hung dead from their cables. It was a ruin. It was also the most beautiful thing Ravi had ever seen. He walked for an hour, mapping the space in his mind. 3 sections, each the size of a stadium. 40 soil beds, all empty. 1 central water tank, corroded but intact. The bones of something that could live again. Commandant Yara expected him to see this place and give up. She expected him to understand that some projects were too big for one person with 30 days and no resources. She was right. It was too big for one person. Ravi smiled. He had never planned to do this alone. That night, he began his analysis. He collected soil samples from the beds and tested their composition in his quarters. Dead but not destroyed. With the right nutrients, they could support life again. He traced the pipe systems on his datapad, identifying which sections could be salvaged. More than he expected. He calculated water requirements, light cycles, atmospheric needs. By morning, he had a plan. It was impossible. He wrote it down anyway. Solon watched him work with growing curiosity. The Mirati had never seen a human so focused on something that was not combat training or diplomatic simulation. "You will fail," Solon said. It was not meant as an insult. Mirati were simply honest. "Probably," Ravi agreed. "Then why continue?" Ravi thought about the question. In his culture, there was a word for this, Ubuntu. It meant that a person existed through their connections to others. No one was complete alone. No tree grew without a forest. "Because the trying matters," he said. "Even if I fail, someone will see what I attempted. Maybe they will try again. Maybe they will succeed. You plant seeds you will never see grow." "Yes." Solon's crystal structure hummed. "This is a strange way to think. It is a human way." The next week was brutal. Ravi attended his required training during the day. Combat drills, diplomatic protocols, species sensitivity courses. At night, he worked in Base 7. He repaired what he could with stolen tools and borrowed parts. He begged maintenance crews for discarded equipment. He traded his dessert rations for wire and tubing. Other cadets noticed. Word spread about the human who spent his nights crawling through a dead section of the station, covered in rust and dirt. Most laughed. What kind of soldier cared about plants? But not everyone laughed. On day 12, a variety cadet named Pell appeared at the entrance to Base 7. He was small, amphibious, with skin that should have been slick but looked painfully dry. His people needed humidity that Dreth Station could not provide. He was always tired, always struggling, always falling behind in training. "I heard you were building something with water," Pell said. His voice was rough. "I am trying," Ravi said. "Can I help?" Ravi looked at the small alien. Pell was not strong. He was not skilled. He was barely surviving on this station. "Yes," Ravi said. "I need someone to map humidity flows. Your species can sense water in the air better than any sensor." Pell's cracked skin flushed with something like hope. "I can do that." 2 days later, a Grun named Benna arrived. She was massive, gray-skinned, and powerful, built like a boulder with arms. Her people were stereotyped as simple brutes, good only for heavy lifting and frontline combat. I studied water engineering before the academy, she said quietly. They told me Gruen, do not engineer. They put me in combat training. Ravi handed her his plans for the irrigation system. Tell me what is wrong with this. Benna studied the diagrams for 5 minutes. Then she began making corrections. Her changes were brilliant that a Seleth named Orin came next. His people were artists, feathered and graceful. He had no technical skills, but he understood something the others did not. If you want beings to protect this place, he said, you must make it beautiful. No one fights for ugly things. Ravi welcomed them all. He gave them roles based on what they could do, not what their species was supposed to do. Benna engineered. Balmapat. Orin designed. And slowly, impossibly, Base 7 began to change. On day 15, they connected the first pipes. Water flowed through the system for the first time in 8 decades. The IT leaked everywhere. The seals were rotten. The pressure was wrong. Water sprayed across the floor, pooling in low spots, running into drains that had not drained anything in longer than Ravi had been alive. Pell sat down in a puddle. His dry, cracked skin drank in the moisture. He closed his eyes and laughed, a wet, bubbling sound that his species made when they were truly happy. Benna looked at the leaking pipes with frustration. We failed. No, Ravi said, sitting down next to Pell. We proved it works. Tomorrow we fix the leaks. Orin spread his feathered arms and let the spray hit his plumage. This is already beautiful, he said. Solon appeared in the doorway. They had been watching for days, but never joining. I can analyze mineral compositions in the soil, Solon said. My crystalline structure is sensitive to such things. Ravi smiled. Then you should start with bed 7. It looks the least dead. Solon stepped into the water without complaint. Their crystal body reflected the spray into 1,000 tiny rainbows. There were 5 now. 5 cadets from 5 species, building something no one asked them to build. Watching from a security feed in her office, Commandant Yara saw the rainbows. She saw the laughter. She saw species that never cooperated working together in the dark. She told herself she was waiting for them to fail, but she forwarded a quiet requisition to station storage. New pipe seals. No explanation. No name attached, just enough to keep them going a little longer. 17 days remained. The pipes no longer leaked. Benna had worked through 3 sleep cycles to redesign the pressure system. She used parts salvaged from a decommissioned waste processing unit. Parts that no one wanted and no one would miss. The water now flowed smooth and steady through Base 7, feeding into channels that spread across the floor like the veins of some great sleeping creature. Ravi stood at the entrance of the station's long-term storage vault. A bored clerk, a small, insect-like being with too many eyes, barely looked up from their screen. Requisition form. Ravi handed it over. The form was technically legal. Any cadet could request materials for personal development projects. He had simply neglected to mention the scale. The clerk scanned the form and froze. All 17 eyes focused on Ravi at once. 200 seeds. Yes. From the old terraforming collection. Yes. That project was canceled 50 years ago. No one has touched those seeds since. I know. That is why they are still available. The clerk stared at him for a long moment. Then very slowly, they stamped the form and pushed it back across the counter. Humans, they muttered, turning back to their screen. Always wanting to grow things. Ravi left with a crate of sealed containers, each holding seeds from a different world. Some were smaller than grains of sand. Some were larger than his fist. All had been preserved in stasis, waiting for a planet that never came. Now they would grow on a station instead. Back in Base 7, the team gathered around the crate like children around a gift. Ravi opened the first container and held up a seed the color of rust. This is from a desert world, he said. It needs almost no water. Its roots go deep and pull moisture from below. We will plant these at the edges, where the irrigation is weakest. He opened another container. These are from an ocean planet. They need constant humidity. We will plant them near the water channels, close to Pell's humidity zones. Orin's feathers rustled with excitement. You have studied all of them. I have studied enough. Some will fail. Some will surprise us. That is how ecosystems work. You cannot control everything. You can only create conditions and see what thrives. Benna lifted a container holding seeds that glowed faintly blue. What about these? Those are from a Grun agricultural world, Ravi said. They need heavy soil and strong foundations. Like your people. Benna's gray face shifted. For a moment, she looked like she might cry, though Ravi was not sure if Grun could cry. No one ever plants Grun crops, she said quietly. They say our worlds are too harsh. Our plants too ugly. Your plants survive anything, Ravi said. We need survivors. They began planting that night. Solon analyzed each soil bed, identifying mineral deficiencies. Pell mapped humidity gradients, showing where moisture collected and where it escaped. Oren sketched layouts that balanced function and beauty, pathways between beds, open spaces for viewing, corners for quiet reflection. Ravi taught them as they worked. He explained how some plants fixed nitrogen in the soil, feeding their neighbors. He showed them how root systems communicated, warning each other of threats. He described the invisible networks of fungi that connected forests, passing nutrients from strong trees to weak ones. Plants are not alone, he said. Even when they look separate, they are connected below the surface. Benna paused, her massive hands gentle around a tiny seedling. Like a team. Yes, exactly like a team. By day 20, the first green appeared. Tiny shoots breaking through dark soil, reaching toward the grow lights that Oren had arranged in patterns that mimicked natural sunlight. Word continued to spread through the station. Cadets came to Base 7 at night, curious or mocking. Most left confused. A few stayed that a Torelli cadet, the same species as Commandant Yara, arrived on day 21. She was young, nervous, holding something small in her 4 hands. I brought my seed, she said. The one from the ceremony. I have been keeping it in my quarters, but it is dying. The air is wrong. The light is wrong. Everything is wrong. She opened her hands to reveal a withered thornbush shoot, brown at the edges. Can you save it? Ravi examined the plant. It was nearly dead, but not quite. I cannot save it alone, but we can try together. There's a bed in Section 2 with the right mineral balance. Your plant needs acidic soil and low humidity. I can help monitor it, Pell offered. I will know if the moisture gets too high. The Torelli cadet looked at them, a human, a Varadi, a Grun, a Seleth, a Mirati, and something shifted in her expression. Why are you doing this? She asked. None of you had to. Ravi took the dying plant gently from her hands. The ceremony gave us each one seed. It was supposed to teach us patience. But patience is not just waiting. Patience is building something you might not see finished. Patience is caring for things that will outlive you. He placed the thornbush shoot into the prepared soil. The others gathered around, each contributing what they could, adjusting light angles, checking moisture levels, testing soil composition. The assignment was one seed, Ravi said. But seeds do not want to be alone. Neither do we. The Torelli cadet knelt beside her plant. Her compound eyes reflected the green of the seedlings around her. Can I come back tomorrow? You can come back every day, Ravi said. Bring others if you want. There is room. She'd come back, and she brought others. Each night, more cadets appeared with their ceremonial seeds, asking if they could plant them in Base 7. The symbolic gesture was becoming something real. Watching from her security feed, Commandant Yara saw the numbers growing. 30 cadets, then 50, then more. She had expected failure. She had expected the human to learn humility. Instead, she was watching something she had never seen in 60 years at this academy. Species working together without being ordered to. She was not sure what to do about it, she did nothing. She simply watched, and somewhere deep in her old Torelli heart, she began to hope. Green spread like a slow fire through Base 7 that would have been gray and dead now breathed with color. Shoots rose from every bed, reaching toward lights that Oren adjusted each morning to match the movement of a sun that did not exist. Vines climbed the walls, finding grips in old pipe fittings. Moss carpeted the walkways, soft under feet that had only known metal floors. Day 25. 5 days remained. Ravi walked the paths at dawn before the others arrived. He had learned the rhythms of this place now. He knew which plants opened with light and which closed. He knew where the humidity gathered and where it fled. He knew the sound of water moving through pipes that Benna had made whole again, that he stopped at his original acacia seedling. It stood 4 inches tall now, its tiny leaves spreading like hands reaching for sky. Such a small thing. Such a stubborn thing. "You are doing well," he told it. He felt no embarrassment talking to plants. His grandmother had done the same. She said plants listened in their own way. Pell found him there an hour later, the variety's skin finally healthy and slick from weeks of proper humidity. "There is a problem," Pell said. Ravi followed him to Section 3. A group of cadets stood in a circle, arguing in 5 different languages. At the center of the argument was a bed of plants that had begun to wilt, a Lority cadet, tall, thin, covered in smooth scales, pointed an accusing finger at a Grun cadet. "Your plant is poisoning mine. Grun crops are toxic." The Grun cadet, younger than Benna and twice as nervous, stammered a defense. "Grun plants are not toxic. They're just strong. Your plant is too weak." Ravi pushed through the circle. He knelt beside the bed and examined the soil, the roots, the leaves. The Lority plant was indeed struggling, but not because of poison. "Both of you are wrong," he said. "Look here." He pointed to where the roots of both plants met underground. The Grun plant is not poisoning the Lority plant. It is competing for the same nutrients. They both need potassium, and there is not enough for both. "Then one must be removed," the Lority cadet said. "No." Ravi dug his fingers into the soil, creating a small channel. "We had a companion. Here." He pulled a seed from his pocket. He always carried seeds now, and planted it between the 2 struggling plants. "This is from a nitrogen-fixing species. Its roots will release nutrients into the soil. Enough for everyone." The Lority cadet frowned. "How do you know this will work?" "I do not know for certain. But on Earth, we have learned that competition can become cooperation. Different plants with different needs can share the same space if you understand what each one offers." He stood, brushing soil from his knees. "Species are the same. The Academy teaches us to work together, but it never shows us how. It just puts us in the same station and hopes we figure it out." He gestured at Bay 7, at the beds of mixed plants, the irrigation channels, the humidity zones, all of it created by cadets from species that had never cooperated before. "This is how. You share resources. You learn what others need. You find the companions that fill the gaps." The argument dissolved. The Lority and Grun cadets knelt together, examining the roots of their plants, trying to understand. That night, more cadets came than ever before. Over 100 now, representing nearly every species at the Academy. They worked in shifts, tending beds, adjusting systems, learning from each other. Solon approached Ravi as he rested against a wall, exhaustion pulling at his bones. "I have been thinking," the Mirati said. Their crystal structure pulsed with colors Ravi had never seen before. "About what?" "About growing. My people do not grow. We form from mineral deposits over centuries. We believe that what we are is fixed, determined by the elements that made us." And now, Solon's crystals shifted. "I have watched these plants change. They respond to their environment. They adapt. They become something new based on what they experience." The Mirati was quiet for a moment. "I wonder if perhaps we are not so different. Perhaps what we become is not fixed. Perhaps we are still forming based on what we experience and who we experience it with." Ravi smiled. "That is a very organic thought for a crystal being." "I am learning to grow," Solon said. "It is strange, but I think I like it." Date 26. 4 days remained. The Academy's senior instructors began visiting Base 7, drawn by rumors and curiosity. Most said nothing, simply walking the paths and observing. A few asked questions. None ordered the project stopped. Commandant Yara came last. She walked alone, her 4 arms folded behind her back, her compound eyes taking in everything. She stopped at a thorn bush from her own homeworld, the same species the young Torelli cadet had brought weeks ago. It was healthy now, its thorns sharp and proud, its leaves a deep green. Yara touched one leaf gently. Her hard shell seemed to soften just slightly. I planted one of these when I was young, she said, though she did not seem to be speaking to anyone in particular. On my homeworld, before I joined the Corps, before I forgot what growing meant. She stood there for a long time. When she finally left, she said nothing to Ravi. But as she passed, her 4 hands briefly touched his shoulder, a gesture of respect among her people. 4 days. The irrigation network hummed. The plants grew, and the forest was almost ready. The vice commandant arrived without warning. His name was Hesh, and he was Lority, the same species as the cadet whose plant had struggled weeks ago. But where that cadet had been willing to learn, Hesh was not. He had served the academy for 40 years. He knew the regulations better than he knew his own family. And he did not like surprises. Base 7 was a surprise. Hesh walked through the growing forest with increasing horror. Plants he did not recognize. Irrigation systems that appeared on no official blueprint. Cadets from species that should have been in separate training blocks working side by side in the soil. "What is this?" he demanded. Ravi stepped forward. "Sir, this is a restoration project. We have converted the abandoned hydroponics bay into a functioning ecosystem that I did not ask for an explanation. I asked what this is. This section was sealed by administrative order. These resources were not authorized. This," he gestured at the cadets gathered behind Ravi. "This is a violation of at least 12 academy regulations." He turned to his aide, a nervous young Torelli carrying a datapad. "Seal this bay immediately. All unauthorized materials are to be removed. The cadets involved will face disciplinary review." The words hit like physical blows. Around Ravi, he heard gasps, protests, the sound of hearts breaking. Benna stepped forward, her massive frame trembling with barely contained fury. "You cannot do this. We built something here. Something that matters." "You built nothing," Hesh said coldly. "You played in the dirt while neglecting your duties. This is a military academy, not a gardening club." "With respect, sir," Ravi said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "The stewardship ceremony itself requires us to nurture growth. We have simply done so at scale. The ceremony is symbolic. It teaches patience. It does not authorize the unauthorized modification of station infrastructure." Hesh's scales rippled with disdain. "You will learn your place, cadet. All of you will." He turned to leave. His aide began issuing orders to the security team waiting at the entrance. Then something unexpected happened. A Grun cadet stepped between Hesh and the door. Then a Seleth. Then a Virati. Then dozens more cadets from species that had never agreed on anything, forming a wall of bodies. They did not speak. They did not threaten. They simply stood. Hesh stared at them, his long neck rigid with shock. "You would defy a direct order?" "We are not defying anything," said the young Torelli cadet who had brought her dying thornbush weeks ago. "We are standing where we choose to stand. That is not against regulations. Move aside." No one moved. Hesh's aide leaned close, whispering urgently. The vice commandant's scales shifted from green to pale yellow, a sign of uncertainty among his people. He activated his communicator. "Commandant Yara, your presence is required in Base 7. Immediately." The wait felt eternal. Ravi stood with his team, surrounded by cadets who had become something more than classmates. They had become a crew, a family, a forest of their own. When Yara arrived, she took in the scene with her compound eyes. The plants, the irrigation channels, the wall of cadets, the furious vice commandant. "Explain," she said. Hesh spoke first. "These cadets have violated multiple regulations. They have modified station infrastructure without authorization. They have used resources without approval. They have abandoned assigned duties. I am ordering the immediate dismantling of this unauthorized project." Yara listened. Then she turned to Ravi. "Cadet Okonkwo, is this accurate?" "Yes, Commandant." Ravi saw no point in lying. "We broke rules. We used resources we were not given. We worked when we should have slept." "And what did you build?" Ravi gestured at the forest around them. "We built proof that it is possible. Species that never cooperate, cooperating. Cadets teaching each other things the Academy does not teach. Plants from 100 worlds growing together in the same soil." He met her eyes directly. The ceremony gave us each one seed and asked us to keep it alive alone. But nothing alive stays alive alone. Everything connects. Everything depends on something else. Yara was silent for a long moment. Her four arms remained folded, unreadable. Then she spoke. Vice-Commandant Hesh, what is the purpose of the stewardship ceremony? Hesh blinked. To teach patience and responsibility. And has any class in 400 years demonstrated those values more clearly than this one? Hesh opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. Yara nodded slowly. There is an old statute in Academy law. Section 47, paragraph 12. Any project that demonstrates exceptional contribution to interspecies unity may be preserved by Commandant authority. She turned to face the gathered cadets. I'm invoking that statute now. Base 7 will remain. Relief flooded through the crowd. Cadets embraced each other, claws and tentacles and hands and wings all tangled together. However, Yara continued, and the celebration quieted. Regulations were broken. Cadet Okonkwo, you will answer for those violations. Ravi nodded. I understand, Commandant. Good. Something shifted in her expression, something that might have been pride. Report to my office tomorrow. Tonight, tend your garden. She turned and left. Hesh followed, his scales still pale with confusion. The cadets erupted in cheers. Benna lifted Ravi off his feet in a crushing embrace. Pell's laugh is wet, bubbling laugh. Oren spread his wings and spun in circles. Solon stood beside Ravi, their crystal structure glowing with colors that meant joy. You won, Solon said. Ravi shook his head, looking at the forest around him, at the plants, at the water, at the beings who had built it all together. We grew, he said. That is better than winning. 1 year later, the station had changed. The corridor leading to Base 7 was no longer empty. Cadets walked its length at all hours, their voices echoing off walls that now displayed images of growing things. The old warning signs about sealed sections had been replaced with something new, a simple plaque that read the grove. Inside, the forest had grown beyond anything Ravi had imagined. Trees rose toward the ceiling, their branches spreading wide to catch artificial sunlight. Vines connected them in networks of green, creating patterns that Oren had designed and the plants had made real. Water flowed through channels that Benna had engineered, feeding streams that wound between the beds like rivers through valleys. In humid corners, Pell's moisture zones supported plants that had never grown outside ocean worlds before, and everywhere, cadets worked together. The new class was larger than any before. 53 species represented, up from 47 the previous year. Applications had increased after word spread about what had happened here. Young beings from across the galaxy had heard the story of a forest that grew on a metal station, built by cadets who refused to accept that one seed was all they could manage. Ravi was not there to see them. He stood on a frontier station 3 sectors away, knee-deep in red soil that had never known rain. Beside him, Benna operated a water pump based on the design she had first drawn in Base 7. Behind them, a group of Grun engineers watched with expressions of disbelief. This cannot work, the lead engineer said. Our soil is too harsh. Nothing grows here. Ravi smiled. Your soil is strong. It just needs companions. He planted the first seed, a hardy grain from earth, bred for difficult conditions. Benna connected the irrigation line. Water flowed for the first time into ground that had been dry for centuries. They were building the first agricultural cooperative between humans and the Grun. It would take years to complete. Ravi was prepared to wait. Back on Dreth Station, Oren walked through the grove with a group of new cadets. He had become the Academy's first official landscape designer, a title that had not existed before he created it. Beauty is not separate from function, he told them, his feathers catching the light. When you design systems, you design experiences. Make beings want to protect what you create. Make them feel connected to it. The cadets listened, their eyes wide with wonder at the forest around them. In a humid corner of the grove, Pell showed a delegation from his homeworld how the moisture management system worked. His region had struggled with water scarcity for generations. Now, based on what he had learned, they were building climate zones that could sustain his people properly. The human taught me this, Pell said, his skin healthier than it had ever been. But he did not just teach techniques. He taught me to see problems differently, to find connections instead of separations. Solon had taken an unusual path for Emirati. They had requested a posting where they could observe organic ecosystems develop over centuries. Their people thought it strange. What could crystal beings learn from temporary organic matter? More than you imagine, Solon had told them. I'm still learning to grow. Commandant Yara had retired the previous month, but she returned to the grove often, walking its paths in the early morning when few others were present. She was writing a history of the academy. The chapter on Ravi's class was the longest she had ever written. She stopped at an acacia tree that stood taller than all the others. It had grown from a single seed, the same seed that a young human cadet had held in his palm and seen as a forest. Yara touched its bark gently. In her other hands, she held a datapad containing reports from across the galaxy. Water systems based on Benna's designs were being implemented on 12 planets. Humidity management protocols from Pell's research were solving crises on worlds he had never visited. Interspecies cooperation programs, inspired by the Grove, were spreading through military academies everywhere. One seed. One cadet. That had been the assignment. The human had seen something different. On Dreth Station, graduation day arrived. The new commandant, a Grun female, the first of her species to hold the position, stood before the assembled cadets. The stewardship ceremony has been part of this academy for 401 years, she said. But it has changed. No longer do we give you seeds to keep in your quarters alone. Now, on your first day, you plant your seed in the grove. You tend it together with your classmates. You watch it grow beside plants from 100 other worlds. She paused, looking out at the young faces before her. You may wonder why we do this. You may think it is just tradition. So let me tell you a story. She told them about a human cadet who received one seed and saw a forest, who broke rules and built something that should have been impossible, who taught species that had never cooperated to work together in the dirt. He did not do it alone, the commandant said. That is the lesson. Nothing grows alone. No one succeeds alone. The strongest forest is the one with the most connections. A young cadet raised a tentacle. What happened to him? The human. The commandant smiled. He is still planting, on worlds across the galaxy. Wherever ground is hard and people have forgotten how to grow, he goes. He will probably never stop. She gestured toward the grove, visible through the hall's great windows. The trees swayed gently in the artificial breeze, their leaves catching light. But you do not need him here to learn what he taught. The grove teaches it every day. One seed can become a forest if you are willing to build the systems that support it. The ceremony ended. The new cadets filed out, heading toward the grove with their seeds. They would plant them today. They would tend them tomorrow. And in a year, they would graduate into a galaxy that needed more beings who knew how to grow. Somewhere on a distant frontier, Ravi Okonkwo knelt in red soil and covered a seed with dirt. He did not know about the ceremony happening on Dreth Station. He did not know how many beings had learned from what he built. He only knew that the ground before him was hard, and the seed in it was small, and the work would take longer than he might live to see. He smiled, pressed the soil down gently, and reached for the next seed. The assignment had been one seed per cadet. The human had delivered a forest, and he was not finished planting.